Recollections of Knulp. Well, in those days I was young and gay, and Knulp was still alive. It was midsummer. The two of us were tramping through fertile country, and we had few worries. By day, we sauntered through yellow grain fields, or lay in the cool shade of a walnut tree, or at the edge of the forest, and at night I listened and looked on as Knulp told the peasant stories and put on shadow plays for the children, or sang songs for the girls. I listened with pleasure, and without envy. It was only when he was surrounded by girls, his tanned face flashing like summer lightning, when for all their laughing and joking, the young things couldn't take their eyes off him. It occasionally struck me that he was an uncommonly lucky devil, or that I myself was the opposite. And then, sick of sitting there like a bump on a log, I sometimes crept away by myself and dropped in on the village priest for a sensible talk and a night's lodging, or went to the tavern for a quiet glass of wine. One afternoon, I remember, as we were making our way through the fields far from the nearest village, we came to a deserted graveyard with a little chapel beside it. Surrounded by walls, overgrown with dark shrubbery, it lay friendly and peaceful in the hot countryside. There were 2 large chestnut trees at the entrance. The gate was closed, and I wanted to go on, but not so Knulp, who started climbing over the wall. "Stopping again?" I asked. "I think so. I wouldn't want to get sore feet." "But does it have to be a graveyard?" "Well, never mind. Just come along. I know that peasants don't go in much for pleasure, but when it comes to their last resting place, they like their comfort. It's worth a bit of trouble to them. Oh, they grow the loveliest things on their graves and all around them." I joined him in climbing the low wall and saw that he was right. The graves, most of them marked by white crosses, lay in straight and crooked rows, and over them grew flowers and greenery. Bindweed and geraniums sparkled with joy. Late gillyflowers grew in the shadiest spots, and there were rose bushes weighed down with roses, and a dense copse of lilac and elder. We looked about for a while and then sat down in the grass, which in places was tall and in flower. We rested and cooled off, and a feeling of contentment came over us. Knulp read the name on the nearest cross and said, his name was Engelbert Auer. He lived to be over 60, but now he's lying under mignonette, which is a lovely flower, and he's at peace. I'd be glad to have some mignonette myself when the time comes. In the meantime, I'll take a little of this. I said, better take something else. Mignonette fades so soon. However, he broke off a sprig and put it in his hat, which was lying beside him on the grass. "How wonderfully quiet it is," I said. And he, "Oh, yes, indeed. If it were just a little quieter, we could hear them talking down there." "But not them. They finished talking." "But how do you know?" "They say that death is just sleep. Don't we talk in our sleep now and then? Sometimes we even sing." "Well, maybe you do." "Oh, why not? If I were dead, I'd wait until Sunday when the girls come here to look about and pick flowers from the graves, and then I'd start singing, but very softly." "Oh, what would you sing?" "What I'd sing? Oh, any old song." He stretched out on the ground, closed his eyes, and soon began to sing in a soft, childlike voice. "Because I died so young, come sing me, pretty maidens, a song of farewell. When I come back again, when I come back again, I'll be a pretty lad." I couldn't help laughing, though I liked the song. He sang beautifully, and even if the words didn't always make sense, the tune was lovely, and that was enough. "Knulp," I said, "don't promise the pretty maidens too much or they'll stop listening to you. It's all very well to say you'll come back, but no one really knows about these things." And how can you be sure you'll be a pretty lad? No, I can't be sure. That's a fact. But that's what I'd like to be. Remember the other day, the little boy with the cow that we asked the way of? I wish I could be like him when I come back. Don't you? No, not I. I once knew an old man, well over 70. His eyes were so quiet and kindly. It seemed to me that everything about him was kindly and wise and quiet. Ever since then, I've thought that if I came back, I'd want to be like him. Well, you've got a long way to go. Altogether, it's a funny thing about wishes. If all I had to do this minute was to nod, and I'd be a nice little boy like that, and all you had to do was nod, and you'd be a kindly old man, well, neither of us would nod. We'd be quite pleased to stay just as we are. Yeah, that's true. Well, it's true, all right, but that's not all. Sometimes I say to myself that the most beautiful thing in the world is a slender young girl with blonde hair. But that's nonsense, because often enough we see a brunette who seems to be almost more beautiful. And besides, there are other times when I think the most beautiful thing of all is a bird soaring free in the sky. And another time, nothing seems so marvellous as a butterfly. A white one, for instance, with red dots on its wings. Or the sun shining in the clouds at the evening, when the whole world is aglow. Yet the light doesn't dazzle us, and everything looks so happy and innocent. Right you are, Knulp. Everything is beautiful when you look at it in a moment. Yes, but there's more to it. The most beautiful things, I think, give us something else beside pleasure. They also leave us with a feeling of sadness or fear. Why? I mean that a beautiful girl wouldn't seem so beautiful if we didn't know that she has her season and that when it's over, she'll grow old and die. Well, if a beautiful thing were to remain beautiful for all eternity, I'd be glad, but all the same I'd look with a colder eye. I'd say to myself, you can look at it any time. It doesn't have to be today. But when I know that something is perishable and can't last forever, I look at it with a feeling not just of joy, but compassion as well. I suppose so. Well, to me, there's nothing more beautiful than fireworks in the night. There are blue and green fireballs. They rise up in the darkness, and at the height of their beauty, they double back and they're gone. And when you watch them, you're happy, but at the same time afraid, because in a moment it will all be over. See, the happiness and the fear go together, and it's much more beautiful than if it lasted longer. Don't you feel it the same way? Yes, I think I do. But that's not true of everything. Or why not? For instance, if a boy and a girl love each other and get married, or if two people get to be friends, it's beautiful because it's meant to last and not to end right away. Knulp looked at me closely. Then his black lashes flickered and he said thoughtfully, "Yes, but that comes to an end too, like everything else. All sorts of things can wreck a friendship, or a love for that matter." True, but we don't think of that until it happens. I don't know about that. For instance, I've had 2 loves in my life, real ones, I mean. And each time I knew it would last forever and could end only with death. But each time it ended, and I didn't die. I had a friend too, back home, and I thought we'd never part, but we did part, long, long ago. He fell silent, and I could think of nothing to say. I still had no experience of the sorrow that is part and parcel of every human relationship. Nor had I learned that no matter how close 2 human beings may be, there's always a gulf between them, which only love can bridge, and that only from hour to hour. I pondered my friend's words. I liked best what he had said about the fireballs, because I myself had often had the same feeling. The quiet spell of the coloured flame rising into the darkness, and all too soon drowning in it, struck me as a symbol of all human pleasure, for the more beautiful it is, the less it satisfies us, and the more quickly it is spent. I told Knulp what I'd been thinking, but he wouldn't go into it, and he only said, "Yes, yes." And then after a long while, in a muffled voice, "There's no sense in all this brooding and pondering. We never do what we think. We don't stop to reflect. We do what our hearts bids us. But maybe there's something in what I said about friendship and love. In the end, we all have a life of our own that we can't share with anyone else. You see that when a friend or loved one dies. You weep and grieve for a day, a month, or even a year. Then the dear departed is dead and gone, and the person in the coffin might just as well be some homeless, unknown apprentice. Don't say that, Knulp. I don't like it. We've often talked about these things. We've always said that life must have a meaning and that there is a point in being good and friendly, rather than bad and unfriendly. But the way you're talking now, well, nothing makes any difference, and we could just as well be thieves and murderers. No, my friend, we couldn't. I'll see if you can bring yourself to murder the next few people we meet. Or tell a yellow butterfly that it ought to be blue. It'll laugh in your face. Oh, that's not what I mean. But if nothing matters, then there's no point in trying to be good and upright. There's no goodness if blue is as good as yellow, and evil is as good as good. And then a man is the same as an animal in the woods. He simply follows his nature. And there's neither virtue nor guilt. Knulp sighed. What can I say? Yeah, maybe you're right. And that's why we get these stupid fits of gloom, because we feel that our wanting and trying are meaningless, and that things simply go their own way. But there's guilt even so, even when a man can't help being bad, because he's aware of the badness in him. And that's why goodness must be the right way. Because when we do good, we're happy, and our conscience is clear. I could see by his face that he was sick of this discussion. Well, that often happened with him. He started philosophizing, stating principles, argued for and against, and then suddenly stopped. At first I thought he had had enough of my inept answers and objections, but it wasn't that. He felt that his leaning to speculation carried him into territory where his knowledge and means of expression were inadequate. For though he had read a great deal, well, Tolstoy, for instance, he was not always able to distinguish between sound and unsound reasoning. And he himself sensed as much. He spoke of learned men as a gifted child speaks of adults. He had to admit that they were stronger and better equipped than he, but he despised them for making no proper use of their learning and for solving no riddles with all their wisdom. Now he was lying on his back again, with his head cradled in his hands, peering through the elder leaves into the hot blue sky and softly singing an old Rhenish folk song. I still recall the last stanza. I've worn the red coat until now, and now the black coat I must wear. 7 years to the day, till my love rots away. Late in the afternoon, we sat facing each other at the dark edge of a copse, each with a big chunk of bread and half a hard sausage, eating and watching the nightfall. Only a short time before, the hills had been bright with the yellow glow of the evening sky, bathed in a fluffy, luminous haze. Now they were dark and sharply outlined, painting their trees, bushes, and meadows on the sky, which still had a little light blue in it, but much more of the dark blue of the night. While there was light enough, we had read nonsense to each other out of strains from the German hurdy-gurdy, a little book of idiotic songs illustrated with small woodcuts. Well, that had ended with the daylight. When we'd done eating, Knulp wanted music. I pulled my harmonica from my pocket, which was full of crumbs, wiped it, and played our usual half-dozen tunes. The darkness had spread far over the rolling countryside. The sky had lost its pale glow, and in growing darker had shot forth one star after another. The light thin notes of the harmonica flew over the fields and lost themselves in the distance.